We're ready. Here we go.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm here in central Washington in Miki's lair. She's giving me the steely blue eyes for gravy right now. We went shopping yesterday for it, but she's still going through her second bump from the gravy last night. She's pretty happy about that. She's got plenty of sweet dreams going on. Okay, so it's Monday, the 12th of May in the year of our Lord, 2024, and we just had our Deputy Secretary of State for Political Affairs in Ukraine jump ship, and her name happens to be Victoria Nuland. We knew this was going to happen. It was just a matter of when. We're leaving now Zelensky to his own devices. The Pope has come out and said, I got to tell you, this Pope has done a bunch of things to not make me happy. But saying that maybe it's time to pull out the white flag and come up with a path forward isn't one of them. There is no sense giving up a whole bunch of lives for 15 more minutes. The very end of a battle, at the very end, just before the end of a war, is always the most deadly. And so if you can avoid throwing people into a maelstrom and save those lives, you're doing your people a favor and you're doing yourself a favor. And 2 years of war is nothing but misery on a system. But I think Mr. Zelensky should think about the Ukrainian people. Yes, they did want to control those areas, but now Russia's taken them. And Russia can keep applying force and grinding forward and forward and forward as far as they want. So the sooner you start talking, the sooner that juggernaut stops. So yeah, that'll just leave poor Mr. Blinken to sort out some sort of a peace plan for Mr. Zelensky. He's going to need people in Europe and here in the United States to support him. Support him with respect to diplomacy. When you've been a war president, you get kind of a bunker mentality, and it's hard to see all the possibilities because you've just been holding on. Zelensky has been holding on with both hands, trying to keep his country together, and you get stubborn. You think that there's no way forward when there may be a way forward, and sometimes it takes an outside looking in kind of perspective to say, well, we thought about this or we thought about that. Now, President Erdogan of Turkey did that earlier and facilitated health, and that's great. And it's nice to hear that the Pope did speak up on the need for peace in that area. It doesn't do the United States any good. It doesn't do Russia any good to have these open festering sores of wars going on. It only destabilizes the entire planet. So now that we've got that fun stuff out of the way, so you guys may notice I wasn't here for a little while, and Ellie had to kind of fill in for me. Apparently, I didn't know I was gone either. she had to fill me in Saturday. I made it 4 days before I figured out. We started piecing together where I'd been. Dang. Yeah, I think I just fell off the chair and that was it. Knocked myself out or something. Started to feel like a crash test dummy. Yeah. All right. So now Ukraine's in near utter failure as far as warfighting capacity. Now, as far as state administration, that's not the case. But on the line of contact, they're in a position where this thing's only going to spiral down from here out. I don't know what their pay schedules are looking like right now on the front lines, but they tend to forget to be paid right towards the end, and the leader bugs out with the money. It happens more than not. Okay. Reading this here, trying to read my own scratches. Yeah, so the French President Mitterrand made the statement that maybe he should be thinking about sending French troops to Ukraine, and it did bring us a tinge closer to the World War III. That was a really bad idea. Look, guys, towards the end of these things, shut up. Don't add to the help now. Yeah, and I was doing some research on this Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, Fannie Willis, and I look at these groups and what do they look like? And what do they act like? That's more important.
Thugs.
They act like children of Black Panthers. I think that may be the case. I know that at least one of them is. And I know one BLM gal is also. So they're probably part of that whole Pan-African Communist Party. See, they don't have a problem with Constitution. Constitution be damned. So, yeah, I'll bet you we're looking at sons and daughters of 1960s Black Panthers, or grandchildren even. So Biden has responded to Netanyahu with a red line that he should be going into Rafah. Well, we've looked at this from all different directions. It doesn't look like he really has a choice. If they drag this thing out, more civilians will die. If they get it done as quickly as possible, fewer civilians will die. Because remember, they're also in deprivation, and it's not as warm right now in that part of the world. So, yeah, we see things from here in the United States, but it looks a lot different when you get over in another country as far as sights and sounds and how things feel. So, Bibi Netanyahu said, that would be like after the D-Day landings, not go ahead and make a push on for Berlin, or Israel has to deal again with what happened after this October surprise of October 7th. Now, right now, this is the Ides of March, so we're at 12th, so the 11th was the Ides of March. And if an expeditionary force is going to go out into the field. This is the time it happens. Just depends on which hemisphere. And so, yeah, October 7th, the Ides of March. Beware. Okay. Ellie, didn't you say something about a hospital?
Yeah. This came from one of my nurses that, and a lot of my regular viewers know that I keep in touch with the nurses up around New York. Well, she a concern um, of what they're seeing in the hospitals up around New York. And she personally watched where illegal, they're coming in daily, and each one of them are taking a swipe at a doctor, a nurse, a tech, almost like she says they're trying to take over the emergency room. And she said, then she heard one of the gentlemen talking to a nurse that that's what they want. They want to take over an emergency room, a clinic, something that they could take over the hospital, and they have other people waiting. So when they do get control of one of these clinics or emergency rooms or somewhere, they'll move in and they'll take it over. And then they have food, they've got medical supplies, they've got hostages. And she asked me, have you ever heard this before? And I said, yes, over in Syria and Iraq and what we're seeing in Gaza. And she said, oh, wow. Is that what they're doing here? And I said, a good possibility. So, folks, I'm trying to make this clear that these illegals, I don't care what Biden wants to call them, they're illegals. And they're coming in and they're terrorists. If they're not terrorists, it's like MS-13. And now we find out they're trying to take over our hospitals to bring in and keep it as a compound. Now, that should tell you that we have a terrorist cell in the United States that's trying to form to be able to start what? A war with us, the civilians, or is it our government and our military? So that's what I heard, William.
Yeah, it makes sense because, once you learn something in one region, you'll cookie cutter that idea and place it some other region. And it will make no sense to people, right? Because people wouldn't even think about, we're going to go dig a tunnel underneath the hospital so we have a bunker. That'd be a great idea, right? Well, yeah, except that's where you want to bring your hurt and wounded police officers when they get caught up in the line of fire. So, yeah, that's a terrible, terrible idea.
Well, let's not just say they haven't already dug tunnels under some of these hospitals with these terror cells, but working with gangs that's been infiltrated by the cartels.
Yeah, well, we have a long history of tunnel work in the United States because of during Prohibition, and so there's a lot of blocked off tunnels in a bunch of these cities, especially where there's railheads, and they can make their way into those things and cause a lot of problems. Because you never know where they're going to pop out. They're going to pop out in front of you, pop out behind you, or pop out in front of you and behind you.
Yeah.
So, yeah. My thing is, it doesn't sound like something Hispanics would be doing. This sounds like something that Islamic would do.
Yeah, see, that was what struck me on when she asked if I'd ever heard about this before. And me, it was all over there in the Middle East that I've seen and heard this, because Syria, when ISIS first invaded Syria, they went to the hospitals and the colleges and the schools and tried to take them over. And once they done that, then they started bombing the hospital and taking over certain portions of it. So this made a lot of sense to me. But I'm glad that the nurses are now, taking they're watching this and they're seeing it. But the thing is there was a few that's been on the news the last few days that they've been hit and punched and they don't know why. And so that's where she got a hold of me and said, "Hey, this is what we're hearing. What does it mean?" And, when I told her, she says, "Can I tell this to the other nurses and doctors because she works at one of the major hospitals in New York." And I said, "Please do. And tell them about the show because, the more they know what's going on, the better their reactions can be. And they could be more, have more security in place, or they could be suspicious of the next patient that comes in that looks, she said, you can't tell. William said the same thing. You can't tell. Are they from Mexico? Are they from Guatemala? Are they from South America? Or are they Middle East terrorist? You just can't tell anymore. And get this, the ones from the Middle East, so they're the terrorists, they can speak 3 to 6 different languages, so they can get through. Now, the one that got me and I chuckled about was China. They could speak Chinese. It was like, boy, I've never heard of Arab or someone from Mexico speaking Chinese. That's a weird one, but they do. And why? So they can communicate with those that are joining up with them to join forces to do what? To the United States. We just don't know yet until it happens. But we could be leery of it.
Well, that's Belt and Road folks that they've been working with the Belt and Road crews.
Yeah.
Ramadan starting, and so that's a high holy month for one of the other faiths of Abraham. And let's see, in Israel, they have the Dome of the Rock, but it's Saudi Arabia who caretakes both Mecca and Medina. And they have huge pilgrimage that go there where they stone the Kaaba and they walk in a big circle together. It has a whole bunch of significant meaning. They took all in the past, people had rocks at the top of mountains that symbolized which god they were. And so they collected all these pillar stones and brought them to Mecca and put them all in the Kaaba. And so that way they have one God. They don't have a whole bunch of gods. See? In Judaism and Christianity, Judaism is waiting for the Christ, and Christianity has seen the Christ, in our opinion. So, yeah, we're all part of the Abrahamic faith, but there's a difference between being Jewish, Christian, and Islamic. Being Jewish or Christian, you can forgive your neighbor, all right? That's a tenet of our religions. But our Islamic friends, if they don't see that they can convert us, they feel like that they're going to convert us by force.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, they want to take away our agency so that we'll be part of their religion by force. So we'd like to thank Saudi Arabia, for making sure that our sons and daughters of Abraham have a place to meet and pray and, work out our feelings there. Let's not do it on the battlefield if we can do it. Now, Hamas thinks that by having the fighting going through Ramadan, that they'll be able to bring a whole lot of political power to the fight and force Israel to stop its continuous force forward.
Yeah.
They don't understand what they did, apparently. It hasn't. They haven't wrapped their head around what they did. That wasn't a terrorism. that was an army. They managed to create an army and didn't know it. That's behind the curve. Okay, yeah. So if you think about it, they attacked Israel by land, by air, and sea. So that's the same technical specs and know-how that we have here in the United States. We call them SEALs, sea, land, air. And they come from the Navy. We got Rangers from the Army. We've got Green Berets from the Army. And we've got a host of folks from the Air Force as well that aid in those different organizations for communications. So,
you know, William, every time they have, Israel, that is, you know, felt sorry for the Palestinians and gave them like a ceasefire. It wasn't really a ceasefire; it was more of a peace agreement. Hamas and Hezbollah has always broke it, and they do this major amount of firepower, and then everybody says ceasefire, and Israel has agreed to it. Well, this time Israel said no, enough's enough. They have spent decades doing the same thing over and over and over again and falling for the ceasefire, where they build up and they just keep going until Israel starts striking back and they see the force, and then they back off and quit again. So to me, a lot of people I've gotten messages from said, well, why wouldn't you want a ceasefire? It's because we've given them the ceasefire and they've broken all the agreements, them being Hamas.
That civilians don't die.
Yeah.
I listened to a program by Yule, I forgot his last name, but he talked about the excellency of the bullet. And what they're talking about is they train themselves so the bullet always reaches their mark, but does so without taking out a civilian. That their number one job is to ensure they don't hurt a civilian and then neutralize a hostage taker or a terrorist. And so in Israel right now, they're getting all kinds of requests through the Ministry of Defense for authorizations to carry pistols, like Glocks, Brownings, whatnot, so that if one of these terrorists by chance makes it into a crowd, because that's what they do, they look for an unsuspecting crowd, and then they rampage onto them and scatter them while they're terrorizing them. Well, if they've got 30,000 people packing in Israel at any one time, and you've got, say, 1,000 people out at any one time out of their homes, well, there's a good chance that the terrorism will go away, because that would be like bringing, a gun to a gunfight. The analogy is never bring a knife to a gunfight. And that's what Israel's done in the past. They've been forgiving. They've brought a knife to a gunfight. Well, that time's over. That ship has sailed. So Hamas says that there's been 13,000 civilians killed, but within that, they've had a lot of terrorists in that number. Includes the terrorists, and they've had things like, when people move north to go up to that safety corridor, the men will make their wives carry their Kalashnikovs under their dresses. They don't have a choice. The women don't have a choice. If they don't do what they're told, they'll kill their wives. And so, yeah, the women expect to be used as mules. Okay, so we've covered that part. part. Now, here's Venezuela. Guess who's making a treaty in Venezuela right now to share forces? Yeah, Iran.
Mm-hmm.
So, Iran and Venezuela. That guy just keeps descending into the third ring of hell.
And even Haiti, a barbecue. They've taken the airstrip, they've taken police stations, and they're sending. Now, I heard they're sending messages to Iran because of Venezuela.
Well, what I do know is American citizens right now are being flown out of the embassy grounds right now by helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
We're airlifting them right now as we speak. Now, there's a row going on here in the United States over this Chinese children's giant TikTok. So, over time, some lawmakers have gotten to the realization that the use of TikTok may be seen in the future by our children as blood money, meaning, yeah, I was playing this game, and then if a war starts in China, the children will feel guilty because they knew they played the TikTok game, and the TikTok game led us to war. That's something to have around your young mind.
Well, that not only that, but they use it to get all the information for anybody. If you're on your phone and use TikTok, it subjects everybody on your phone to China because they'll go looking at everybody. It's a spy program, and this was brought out during the Trump administration.
Yeah, and the kids at the military base, they're not old kids. They're young guys. They're the TikTokers, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is college age, high school age crowd, and they're giving up all their information to the Chinese Communist Party. It's a bad idea, and I think that they should force TikTok to be sold. And especially if the CCP decides to go and grab Taiwan, because if they decide to grab Taiwan, we will go to war. It's written in stone now. They're not going to play games with that. And so, yeah, imagine being the teenager that realized that he was doing TikTok and ended up out in the South Pacific someplace, plug it out with mainline Chinese boats.
Mm-hmm.
Not a good look. Okay, so that's very, very bad. Now, the United States, the one thing the United States hates, absolutely hates, is anybody messing with their boats. We ended up in World War I.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up in World War II over messing with our boats. We ended up in the Tonkin Resolution from somebody messing with our boats. We ended up in Operation Praying Mantis sinking half the Iranian Navy in one 8-hour ship because they messed with one of our boats. The fat electrician's right. Tell you, say it, we'll say it again. And you should listen. Don't mess with America's boats. We don't like that stuff.
No, the military. We've talked about this on the show before, where the military is a little separate from this administration, where it's almost like they act on their own. And when you mess with the fleet, then that's the drums of war almost.
Well, if you shoot at one of our ships and our ships get hurt, in exigency, right? If we track a missile coming in, we can send a missile going the same place that it came from. So if you're sending one inbound, you can expect one going outbound, or two, or three, and they're not going to play that game because they're not on the ocean to be a billboard. They're out there to keep the peace or to go to war. That's what they do. They go to war with pirates. They'll go to war with anybody that wants to, leave their calling card. Don't mess with the ships. Don't mess with the ships. That's how we ended up, going in to fight the Germans. Same way. They messed with their ships. And, by the time it ended with the Japanese Imperial Navy, we'd taken out Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That was a very, very violent island hopping campaign. I don't know if you've ever been on these islands out here in the South Pacific. They are burning hot. You're just dying for water the entire time you're on these black sand beaches.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, you're having to dig down into it to get shelter from bullets and whatnot. It's a terrible situation to be in, and then have to be able to fight and overcome in it. And, a lot of us don't really think about that. But, if you're out there in the world and you're listening to us, don't mess with the United States ships.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's an excellent way to die. So, did we tell everybody what happened to me? Apparently, Wednesday I was halfway through a program and Ellie kind of heard a thud, and then she was able to finally get hold of me. What was it, Saturday?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was by that time. She's had to talk me back into consciousness, figure out what I was doing, remind me to eat, just the basic things.
I'll poke you with a stick.
Huh?
I poked you with a stick.
Well, you had to prod me because it's not like I was doing much thinking. I was trying to tie wires together on my phone system, and I wasn't even paying attention to the fact that Miki had run out of water. She'd gone 4 days without. The birds had run out of water. I had to run around feeding all the animals. It took me all morning to figure out what that D was. It was my phone going off over and over and over again, and it just didn't even register in my mind. It's probably over 4 or 5 hours that thing was doing that, and I was trying to figure out why it wouldn't shut up, why it was in the wrong place. So I don't know, maybe Evil William II took over and decided he was going to rewire the house. That would be funny, sort of. Anyway, so Honolulu's had one of the worst gruesome crimes in a while. And I don't really like to report on these. We've seen them every now and then, where a father will take out his wife, his children, and then take himself out. I don't know what makes that happen. Look, if you're in a bad relationship, don't be afraid to, if you have to, walk away. It's not worth the misery you'll cause your parents and her parents and everybody else you leave behind. People love you, and that leaves a sad stain, taste in people's mouths that never really go away. They'll remember you for this, and this is the thing they'll remember you for probably the rest of your life, for their lives. I wouldn't want to run into those folks on the other side. They're not going to be pleased with you. So our Russian Air Force has roared back into the creation of a new glide bomb that's tying up its old bomb units and putting fins on them and targeting pod and fins on the back. And what they do is they fly up at a 45 degrees, accelerating until they get to the top of their arc. And then they release that bomb at 50,000 feet, and it can glide up to like 16 miles. Well, when you get that far back, you don't have to deal with the anti-aircraft artillery. We call it AAA, and that's just people with heavy long guns, right? 20 millimeter, 30 millimeter guns. And it's also surface-to-air missile SAM sites. So, yeah, these glide bombs are being used more and more, and so it's a way of using old dumb iron in a useful way and getting rid of these munitions we've had on stockpile from Vietnam and Korea. So that's good, sort of. Not for Ukrainians, but it's good as far as thinking of ways to save a little bit of money and making what we have go farther. Now, I remember I said that Victoria Nuland has jumped ship on Zelensky, and she's hoping to ride it out without being part of the political storm. Vicky, we know you were there. Tough. Sorry. We're not going to forget about you, not after that big. You know, you wiped out half our military stocks. We're not forgetting you. And it turns out that it's just like Ellie and I said it was grudges she had towards, her grandparents had towards Russia with respect to Ukraine. So people have brought U.S. weapons in to fight a war for people who no longer exist. So for people who no longer exist that were slighted by another country, another nation from halfway around the world is responsible to help destroy that other third country. So that's a level of psychosis.
Yeah.
It's to even have that in your head. I don't understand. That's not connecting dots very well.
No.
She may be personal. She may be a great dancer. She may be a bunch of stuff, but connecting the dots is not something she does well.
Yeah.
So at Port in Cyprus right now, they're loading bulk carriers for humanitarian aid to send to Gaza. And Emmanuel Macron, like I said before, he talked about sending French soldiers into Ukraine, and just about got us started in World War III. The Kremlin in the Russian Federation, they were talking weapons of mass destruction. They don't want this thing drawn out forever.
No. And I think all the wars are. I think they all keep mentioning nuclear weapons, but I think everyone is too in fear to be the first shot. Well, except for North Korea and Iran.
Unlike Macron, he's probably got 2 or 3. Russia has a big pile. Big pile. And we don't want them getting all testy. And like I said, the Pope came out with this white flag remark, and allies accuse them of doing the bidding for Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I think. If you've got friends like that, who needs enemies?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you want what's the very last of your army wiped out because you wanted to listen to your neighbors?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, get new friends. So that's a market watch. The Economist thinks that capitalism is dead and that it's terrible. Capitalism isn't dead, first of all. Second of all, communism does lead to death of tens and hundreds of millions at a time, and nothing has lifted more people's wealth than Western capitalist engines around the world. We're talking about wealth in South Africa. We're talking about in Honduras, every place on earth, the Philippines. Everybody lives better than they did before because of capitalism. Because it's not restricted to just one country. It's a multinational operation. It lifts all boats, not all boats equally, but it does lift all boats.
Mm-hmm.
If you're living on 20 cents a year, and now you've got $5 for 20 cents a day, now you've got $5 a day, that's a big
Mm-hmm.
deal. That's the difference between, famine and not having a lot of want in these smaller countries. So I don't know what they're teaching at these schools of economics, but in the military we had monikers for each of our different training. So I did electronics, radio electronics. So I was a spark chaser, and then you had fuels, right? And so they're gassers. Then you had people that did hydraulics. They were bubble chasers. And then they had munitions, right? That set up munitions for the aircraft. We called those guys bean counters or bean stackers. Well, if you work
Mm-hmm.
at a bank, then you're a bean counter.
Yeah.
And apparently, this bean counter guy hasn't had much more common sense than Miss Newland, and isn't connecting all the dots yet. So I guess we'll pray for him. But if you try to take our country towards that communism thing, you're going to get what you got coming. Next. So now, the people who have been investing in China are talking about America descends into a new Red Scare. No, guys, it's not a new Red Scare. We've been talking about this for 4 years. Not a new Red Scare. It's a Red Scare, and you've been doing business with them the entire time. You got blood money on your hands. Just saying. Straight up. If you give an enemy of the United States
Mm-hmm.
safety, harbor, access, we're not pleased.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's one or two people that are pleased, but they're only in your family. So now I guess we can edit genes in people's bodies, according to the Wall Street Journal. And I'd like to talk to scientists. Scientists, if they think they can do something, they'll do something.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a reason for doing something other than exploration. But here's the thing. You mess around with one long chain of human DNA, it will last forever. We'll all be having children married into those lines forever.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that. Even though you can do some things should not be done. Like, I don't know, a bat virus? Think, kids. having a big dengue fever outbreak. So how we helped that during the Panama Canal time is we went into all the backwaters, beaches and stuff, and we just took spray canisters and pumped oil onto those areas so that insect larvae and fly larvae couldn't grow. And then that's how we were able to do the big cut for the Panama Canal, where everybody else had failed because they had lost so many lives in process. It was actually a doctor that figured out how to make the Panama happen from the perspective of what was going on the ground. He figured that out, and so that's what they did. They sent these guys out with oil canisters, and some of it they burnt, because that'll get rid of it. But a lot of it is just going around all these little backwaters where there's standing water, clear standing water, and these larvae will grow. If you've got tires in the backyard that collect rain in them, you'll have mosquitoes from that. If a bird feeder out front, and you don't keep that rinsed out and cooled off, you'll have mosquitoes growing in as well.
Yeah.
So you got to be really careful about standing water.
Yeah.
When it comes to malaria, dengue fever, they're not funny viruses to get. This will take you right to the edge of your life. Okay. Here's the helicopters getting our people out of I don't know why on that island, Dominican Republic, and why these folks can't be led, can't adapt to social norms. Do you know which island I'm talking about, Ellie?
Not right offhand.
No, they're off from Venezuela. It's okay. I won't catch you on the spot, but we're having our people flown out of the embassy there.
Haiti?
Yeah, Haiti.
Cuba?
So
there's Venezuela, there's Haiti and Cuba, and we've even had some of our politicians go down to Cuba trying to talk them into not going in the same path that Venezuela or Haiti is in right now. So it's one of the three.
They're both in self-destructive spirals. And, every 7 to 10 years we have to go and do this all over again. If you do the money that's been spent on just Haiti trying to stabilize that by the U.S. government, it's in the billions and billions of dollars. And every time they have a big earthquake, the concrete huts they have fall down, kill lots of them. It's a miserable existence. Some of the people who were the best fighters in the Marine Corps in World War II fought in Haiti first. They're good fighters. They're just not.
And these are the Haitians that are doing the uprisings, the ones that's on the poorer side of the island. They got, if everybody remembers, we had, was it a hurricane or an earthquake that hit them really hard? And we went over and we tried to help them, but we ended up only helping the better part of the island. And then that's kind of where this group has now just fed up that the United States will only help politicians and the rich and not the poor. And so now they're taking over.
We had to bring in helicopters and physically land with Marines to be able to hand out aid to the poor. They were that dangerous. We couldn't just have them come to the palace and line up for food.
Yeah.
That was just an impossibility.
Yeah.
We had to maintain a floor and locus of control, and at any second be able to pull the cyclic back and go up because these folks would lose control and mob the aircraft.
And right now, that's a big concern because it's so close. And what they're doing is we have got, I believe, Russia is on Cuba. We have Russia, China, not only in Haiti, but in even Venezuela and Colombia. And then Mexico,
Yeah.
of course. So that's our Gulf Ocean right there. That's the Gulf.
Yeah, that's all part of the Monroe Doctrine that we fought against, and somehow Obama forgot, and he ceded our pond to the rest of the world.
Mm.
Okay, this is the most disturbing thing I think I saw today. Business insiders say Ukraine medics say they rarely evacuate the wounded soldiers until nighttime. And so you can imagine having, a corporal hole in your body and then having to wait 8 hours so that they could evacuate you semi-safely. We had guys like that on top of some of these mountains at Tora Bora. Deals that didn't make it because they succumbed to the wounds or succumbed to their wounds and frostbite at the same time. And they just suffered until they couldn't suffer anymore. So, okay, that's our hour program. I think William is more, cogent, awake, and I just want to apologize to Ellie for leaving her in a lurch. I didn't intend to do it, but somehow I did it.
We did fine. So, but we will be back tomorrow with the World War III report. So.
Yeah, so remember to like, subscribe, share, be a part of our family. This is our family show, if you will. We're kind of stitched all across the United States. I think Karen's in is in Pennsylvania, and Ellie's in Arkansas, and I'm here in Washington State. And I think we've got some folks over in Ohio, and we've got some people in Illinois. So we're the width and breadth of the United States, and we're working together to get this program to go out to people who need information so they know what a good outcome should look like with respect to these military incursions. A lot of what happens is just standard operating procedures. And if you're not from a military background, you won't know that, and so you'll have a heightened fear level. But if we explain to you why this is just a natural act of warfare within the laws of warfare, this is going to play out. There will be, daylight at the end of the thing. This is a squabble on some border someplace. If folks need to work it out, then you don't have to worry about having that World War III happen, having your sons and daughters drafted, going to someplace far away against their will.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff has happened. What we hope happens here in the future is that Trump or the next president will superheat the economy and bring us up to a military manufacturing status so that we can create everything we need for the military here in the United States so so we don't run out of things and we can produce them much faster. Right now, they have a lot of restriction on them as far as testing. It takes literally months to get some of these things done. When a lot of the restrictions come off in a time of war, during World War II, we were getting stuff done in hours instead of, a month. So, depends on what the permissibility is for weapons making, whether it's liberal or conservative permissibility of testing. And the contractors right now, like Raytheon and whatnot, these people do great work. They're giving us a great product. But the product they're giving us is a little expensive and is not streamlined economically. So hopefully we can get that straightened out, because we want Raytheon to not just produce, what they're producing now. We want them to produce a whole lot more stuff. We want to make their lives active and vital and aid to our self-defense, so that if this new thing pops up in Southeast Asia, we'll be able to grapple with it, because we'll have instantaneous manufacturing capacity.
Well, we'll need everybody young and old to be on their toes on this. Everybody, I think, will have something they're going to do that helps, whether it's the military or the civilian.
Mom and dad babysit the kids so the daughter can go down and work at the factory. You guys get the idea. It's a whole family thing. Well, they do metal drives during these type of things. They get in as much scrap metal as they can, and we can move those materials towards our war making production. But right now, the big problem is chip manufacturing. We're doing so much digitally that we have to get
But we're also having shipping issues around the world. I mean, either Taiwan or around Yemen, or even going across from the UK to the United States. There's just big shipping issues
all over the world. And even if the ships aren't attacked, it drives up the price of insurance.
That's right.
And so having our own indigenous supply of steel, of aluminum, you guys got the idea, all the parts and pieces, plastics that we need, being able to have, having enough oil when you need the oil. We have the strategic oil reserve, not so Biden could prop up the price of oil for him in China, but so that we have reserves for our military in times of war. That's what it's there for. And, this administration's been very abusive to the entire system. And we just want to tell all the workers out there, our government's doing a good job every day. Thank you. God bless you for doing the good work you are. If you got somebody that's starting to cause problems, so maybe reach out, pull them aside and say, now's not the time, guys. This just isn't the time. And we can have a lot of the problems that we have going on right now just go away with a few words. That's really all it takes a lot of times, is just letting people know what expectations are. So we'll see you tomorrow on the World War III report with Ellie and William, and Miki and I say have a great day, and she'll have some gravy for and on behalf of you guys right after the show. All right, bye-bye.